It's 29 minutes past.
Oh, that's
Oh, is it? Well,
yeah.
welcome to another Gymnast Voice podcast, the place where we are going to discuss everything within our culture and to give you your voice for you to discuss everything that's within our culture. We have lots to discuss tonight. We've got a list of, we don't talk about David Kenwright, and obviously we don't know the real reason why he's left, but apparently he's retired. But he was the man that wrote the infamous email. We're going to discuss why there's so many injuries. What do you think could be causing so many gymnasts to become injured at the late stages for international tournaments? We're going to talk about, just briefly touch, the retirement of Amelia Morgan, the timing of it. Sorry, Emily Morgan. I do apologise for it's so bad. My head is at 100 miles an hour. And the timing of it, and obviously the way that the other young gymnast stepped in and secured silver, which was a fantastic achievement. So yeah, we're going to be discussing a little bit about the Euros. Obviously, we want to discuss Aaron Prime, who is the welfare person, who I want to know what knowledge he had of Stuart in 2019 when he was arrested, because this man was in charge of integrity and would have known about the arrest of a sex offender, and who helped make these decisions to allow him to coach from afar whilst on bail for sex offences against minors. So, and he's the only one that's still left out of the three that were there originally. So we're going to discuss that. Dino is on his way. He's just got some commitments and he will join as soon as he can. It could be 15, 20 minutes. We don't know, but he will be here to answer your questions, thankfully. And again, Dino, thank you for volunteering your time and your professionalism. And we will, get to the bottom of the rest of the ICP questions and the questions that you've sent into him for him to answer on this podcast. We've also got to discuss Jess Daykin's TikToks, which, again, a phenomenal elite gymnast who's very, very brave, who came out a long time ago and stood fast up against what she thought was injustice and got deselected for it. So that's another topic we're going to discuss in this culture. Why can't you speak the truth? Why do you keep getting threatened? And it ties in with, if she wanted, imagine what a phenomenal coach she would be as an elite gymnast of her standard. And she's going to be denied that opportunity to pass that experience on to kids unless she takes down her social media, which is just being honest. How ridiculous is that? We're also going to discuss the updates to the ban list, which seems like every single podcast, new one appears. Let's hope in the next 2 weeks, they don't keep up that ratio, because we want our culture to improve, but it's a bit ridiculous that there is one. And I never noticed about that Matthew before. I want to know why he's got a 2-year sports ban. I mean, that sounds worldwide, right? Yeah, and we know people on that list who should be called more than just safeguard, right? So we're going to be discussing that as well. Obviously, the ICP, and then to finish off, we're going to discuss. We have a new series called Blind Eye, and Blind Eye is going to be interviews with some very significant people within our culture who want to share their stories. Some want to go public, some want to stay anonymous, but we're making dates with some very, very, very significant stories that we believe you should hear from the horse's mouth, which will give a very clear indication on whether the culture has improved or not. So there's going to be lots to discuss, all right? And I think what we should probably start, while we wait for Dino to arrive to start answering the questions, is there anything I've missed, by the way, that we're going to discuss this evening?
I think so. Questions?
Okay. Is the sound okay? Is the image okay? Everything's good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start with obviously the David Kenwright's retirement. Now, we don't know, or there's been no real clear reason why he has retired, especially the timing of the retirement before the Olympics. What possibly could have gone on? Now, the email that he wrote hit our community hard because the narcissism that was in it and the total wording that he used upset a lot of people. Now, I don't know whether that has anything to do with him retiring, because it means that maybe he felt remorse for the words that he said. But I don't see.
That was back in 2022 after the World, so that would have been 2 years ago. Why go now, the night before, or BG announced it the night before the Euros, when we know for a fact that he was out of coaching for about, what, 6 weeks? So why didn't you announce it then, 6 weeks ago, and sort out a plan rather than just before the Euros? You know, damage control, anyone?
Well, yeah, and damage for what? Because is it just the email, or is there something else going on behind the scenes? I mean, I don't know the man, and there's two sides to every story, and I'm sure that there's many people, excuse me, that would have a positive thing to say. And I'm not saying anything negative about him specifically. I will certainly say something negative about his email.
I think you did in the documentary.
Yeah. But I don't know them. So I want to know, is there anything else in the community, or can anybody in the community help us with why all of a sudden he's just retired? If it's because it's quite big for an elite coach to retire. I've never seen one retire for nothing. There's always a reason. Right? I mean, if you go around to Liz Kincaid, she retired, apparently.
Well, they were at the same gym, you know.
Were they?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but I'm not, listen, I'm not saying anything about Mr. Kenwright. I don't know the man. I do not want to associate him with Liz Kincaid's toe curling stories, because that would be defamation of character to him. But what I am saying is, I don't think Liz wanted to retire. I think there's cover-ups, and I think there's let's protect the brand. So therefore, if you go quietly under retirement, it won't look as bad. But she was suspended and didn't go to the Olympics. So there is a backstory to Liz Kincaid. I'm asking, is there a backstory to this Ken Wainwright? I don't know why he's retired. However, sorry, David Kenwright. Where am I getting this Wainwright from?
No.
My days.
24 hours, there's that whole program.
It's true. But at the end of the day, you know, I want to know, because I need to ask these questions, because there's something going on at the top. There are gymnasts leaving. There are elite coaches retiring. What actually is happening? If this is a culture that's changing and it's for the better, why would you retire now? Why go now? That's like you say, if it was written in 2022, why are you going now? So I need to ask some questions, or if anyone can help us, bring in and say to us, look, you know, we have a bit of a background story to this, and the reason why he retired was X. We'd like to hear it. But I just think it's very ironic that after that email was aired on the ITV documentary, obviously his thought or through line of what he felt back then in 2022 became public. Right, of which we two are. Maybe he couldn't cope with that. I don't know. I'd love to speak to the man. Ken. David. I bet he's a bleeding character on EastEnders.
It's like it's open all hours. Jason program. Sorry, I'm copying.
Yeah, if you're watching and you want to give us your view, please do, because I'd love to know why, especially with that time. It's the same with the retirement of Emily Morgan at the same time. There's things that are happening that you can read between the lines, and people are leaving messages and saying that I'm amazed that someone as good as her, who had such a career, who is a phenomenal gymnast, decided to retire just before a major championships and didn't thank BG in any way. I find that strange. I think that tells me a lot. I don't know this fantastic gymnast. I'd love to speak to this person for her to explain, because I've got so many questions. But when you're that good on the eve of a major tournament to retire, I've got to ask why. Do you know? I mean, why would you? I don't have.
And that you prefer Utah. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Reddit, but I read it quite a lot. Reddit.
Reddit, I think so.
And the American gymnasts and the American community are all over. They're just chatting about everything. And it's quite some good points of view on there. And you can see what happens at these different colleges, US colleges and things.
Mm-hmm. I did hear that Utah, I know of their reputation in the past, but they've turned things around. And for her to specifically say that it was a nice, warm culture environment means they've really changed their culture around, which is good to hear. But my question is, why are you thanking Utah and not BG? When again, you're an elite gymnast, you're in the squad, you're about to do the Euros, the Olympic Games, and you decide not to.
But you think the club who's got a couple of coaches that are in investigations.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. I think everybody's saying it doesn't make sense. So
yeah, I mean,
it's just time. And if BG knew about David Kenwright 6 weeks ago, that's when he made his decision, say, like, you know, just before Easter, would have tied up with everything, all their training. You know, who's been in charge for the last 6 weeks? So I know a couple of kids or gymnasts have been injured since then as well. So do you know what I mean? It's these kids' dreams and careers. So if these like so-called adults and people in power don't know what they're doing, and the people that are watching it don't know what they're doing, it's just, you know, it's just crazy. So thank God that, you know, the team did it in spite of British Gymnastics and what's going on, not because of them. And that in itself says a lot about you guys.
Oh, for sure, that's a hell of a performance. That with what must be going on behind the scenes that we don't know the full ins and outs. There's retirements, there's, you know, injuries, there's a whole nothing of one, right? But for those girls to step up, the whole squad to step up and still bank it, man, missing the quality that they were. Do you know what I mean? You can't miss people like Ondine and that. You can't lose that standard, and it's not going to affect your score. Phenomenal achievement.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, wow. It just goes to show. I mean, to me, gymnastics is the toughest sport in the world because of the bravery that's involved in every action that you do. And considering the tender age of these brilliant gymnasts, when they do face their fears on absolutely every single move, there's not a move where you don't have to test your minerals. These kids just do it time and time and time again. And then, you know, you got to understand, imagine trying to learn a new move, going beyond your growth. Your development happens right at the end of where your growth rate is. Well, growth happens right at the end of your development. So you're trying to add something you've never done before on top of something else. That takes a pair. It takes the biggest pair you've got, especially if it's a rotation, and then to land it. I mean, you know, the coaches are good. The preparation is key for, you know, any athlete to do that. But never ever underestimate the actual courage it takes to take off and implement said biomechanic to then land it.
Or to continue. I mean, there's bars. I saw Becky Downey and finger your thumb. Oh my God. You know what I mean? And to do that routine and you secure those medals for the rest of your team, like amazing what they have to go through. I couldn't even, well, I had to watch it, but I had to turn the commentator down because she was driving me mad, like probably most of you.
Well, yeah, but I agree with you. I think the comeback to me was even more significant because you've fallen down and you've come back and you've gone, nah, I'm going to do the routine again. That's testing your pair and game. Knowing that you just had a failure. Again, I can't, it's salute. These gymnasts are phenomenal. And the stupid thing is, what I don't get is why the coaches put themselves first. How can you put yourself in front of a girl that's just done that? How could you ever put yourself above Ondi? How? You know, now I know that, and the funny thing, I've got to say this, and I know this might upset a few people, but this isn't a hard sport to coach. Right? I am not a gymnast, came from outside a gymnast. If you understand a bit of maths and a bit of biomechanics, it's quite an easy job. All right, it's a physical job for sure, but it's not rocket science. So I don't get the fact that these high-level coaches seem to have, like, they are the most cleverest people in the world.
They own the skills. You wouldn't have done that if it weren't for me.
Right.
There's no secret technique. Once you know like the basics, you can pretty much work it out.
And once you've got the basics, it's an add-on and an add-on and an add-on. So it's not like you're teaching a kid from go to A to Z. You teach the kid to go from A to B, B to C, C to D.
And then they can pretty much go from E. Right. Is then like looking after them as a whole person.
Exactly. So I don't get the why. Why does the coach get the MBE? That's what I don't get. I've never seen a coach land a move in my life. Do you understand? I've never seen a coach win a medal. They have assisted that gymnast and given that gymnast the right guidance. But what is it about this sport where the coaches are so, we are everything, and the girls like Ondine or everyone, any elite gymnast with the balls that you have, meet and working through that pain, through the culture to achieve the medals that you have. How are you not ain't got anything?
Well, the Downing sisters did. They did get it for speaking out, which was good. But about David Kenwright, actually. So go on, girl. You got it going on at the moment. Oh my God.
That's why I have a few questions. I know there's two sides to every story, but I think that the other side that we're hoping to give more voice to has not been heard enough. We all know the PR, we all know the glossy, we all know that every coach is trying their hardest. Some are going on welfare courses to, oh, looks like Dino's here. 1 second. Let's admit. Where would he be? I've admitted. What's going on?
He's probably in a meeting.
Here we go. Here we go. Minimize that. Is he in? He takes off his own camera and stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Good evening, Squire.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good.
Good, good. I'm just going to turn
All feels very professional this time, doesn't it?
So good to see you, Dino. Once again, thank you so much for volunteering your time to be here. Again, if for those who have just joined or you don't know, this is Dino Nocivelli from Leigh. He will introduce himself, but we are very lucky to have him. They're one of the best abuse law firms in the country, and I'll allow Dino to introduce himself and Jehovah, but he's dedicated his time to help our community get the correct answers to some of the questions that we need answering to. And without further ado, good evening, Dino. Good to see you. And how have you been to start with?
Yeah, been good. Thanks for having me on, Carlton. And sorry for being a bit late. I put my boy to bed, so it's a bit longer than expected, as it always does. So yeah, my name is Dino Nocivelli. I'm a lawyer and a partner at Leigh Solicitors, specialising in representing abuse survivors. I've been doing so over the last 10 years. Exclusively represent abuse survivors and have a specialism of abuse in sport, to be frank. So I've got lots of experience, sadly, in working with those who have suffered abuse, bringing civil actions against institutions, working with the media, and campaigning for change, whether it's mandatory reporting, whether it's independent sports ombudsman, the list goes on. There's lots of things which we need to do to close the loopholes, to make it easier for people to disclose, and to make sure that we stop abuse. That's what everyone's aim should be. I know you sent through a couple of questions from your listeners. Is that how it works? Listeners or viewers? I don't know what the correct term is.
The community, we don't know.
Outside.
It could be a gymnastic coach, just anyone involved in gymnastics that wants answers. Shall I swap the screens? It looks like we're not talking.
Don't fiddle, just it's fine.
So it's quite a range of questions here. So I'll work through them in different sections. One of the first questions actually is, how close are we for a sports ombudsman? So just for people, what does a sports ombudsman mean? What is it? What's the point of it? In my view, and I've been campaigning for it for a long time, it's similar to, Care Quality Commission or Ofsted, I suppose. It's a body which is supposed to be independent. It's a body which is supposed to make sure that there's a standard of safeguarding, which is the same across every single sport. Now, if it's a Friday night, so if you're going to go out and get a takeaway, whether it's a Chinese, an Indian, maybe a pizza, when you go to your takeaway, it will say between 1 and 5 the food safety, the cleanliness, etc. That's the same across the country. It's not just for Italian food, and it's not just for Chinese food or Indian food or whatever else. In sport, we don't have that. Actually, each sport basically regulates itself to a large extent. So when we're looking at DBS checks, when we're looking at how many safeguarding officers are there in football, now you may think it should all be proportionate, Dino. Of course it should be. So football is the most popular sport in the country. Let's say there's 100 people which do football, and we would have 10 safeguarding officers, so 1 to 10, the ratio. Gymnastics, 50 people do it, so it should be 5, Dino, shouldn't it? It doesn't work that way. Each sport has different numbers. The DBS checks are different, the safeguarding rules are different. So if you're someone who's a volunteer in gymnastics, football, and tennis, you have different training, different CPD, different DBS checks for all of it. The frequency, for example. The reason why myself and others are demanding a sports ombudsman means that Number one, it's the same standard for every sport. So you know your child isn't safer in football than they are in gymnastics or rowing. It's the same standard first. Secondly, it's independent. If I've suffered abuse in swimming, do I want to go and speak to Swim England about abuse from my swimming coach?
No.
If it's a gymnast, the same point. You want that independence, even if they are going to do the right thing and the intentions are right. If you've suffered abuse often, sadly, your trust has been broken. And it's just not really plausible because you just think it's the old boys network. They're all on this, looking after themselves. They want to protect themselves. Most people in these sports are good people. However, we're talking about what an abuse survivor would do and what their feelings are. And if there's been failings, if there's a lack of speed in the process, independence is so important. One of the questions is as well, who's the leading forces for this movement? I would say the leading force, and she probably won't like me saying this, but it's actually Tanni Gray-Thompson, Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson, I should say, sorry. Ex-Paralympian, now in the House of Lords. I do a lot of work with Tanni. She did a duty of care report probably about 6 years ago or so. She's been demanding it for a long time. I've been demanding it, others are as well. We think that every single sport should have the same level of safeguarding, and also when there's a scandal, in quotation marks, aka the press and the media pick up on an issue. It was football in 2016, 2017. It's been gymnastics, it's been tennis. What's the next sport? Netball, rugby, hockey. They're always reactive. A sports ombudsman, an independent sports ombudsman, would be able to be proactive, to go in and check, similar to Ofsted and the care quality commissions and the food standards you see in your takeaways, etc. That's what we need. That would give survivors confidence. It would also give whistleblowers confidence. So if my name's Carlton and I'm a gymnast coach, I don't have to think, geez, Louise, do I want to tell BG about this? Because this may affect my career. This may affect me. I'm going to look like a bad un. I'm not one of the lads. I'm going to put my head above the parapet. You ever do that, you get your head knocked off. You don't get your head stroked. Usually it falls off, sadly. So that's why independent sports ombudsman is what we are demanding, and it's needed, to be totally frank. So quite a simple question, but quite complicated, just so people understand why we need this for.
What's the time frame?
Time frame.
So I know you've been working on this for a while. So what is the time frame? How long does it take to implement this sports ombudsman?
Most things in life, the speed of most things in life happening usually come down to someone's will, someone's desire, to be totally frank. If you have one person saying, I want every Friday to be jelly day, you have to have jelly for breakfast. It's not going to happen. If you have 1 million people saying it, if there's good reasons for it, if there's financial and political, benefit and push for it, it will happen, to be totally frank. So say jelly day as a totally made up, obviously, idea. But your question is, it has 2 points. We need as many people as possible to demand a sports ombudsman. The more which demand it, the greater the push for it. We need people to understand the benefit of it. Having a sport ombudsman may create more problems because there'll be more issues to investigate. They will look underneath more carpets. That may cause more issues. And more people may come forward because they feel it's independent, because it is. So if I can talk, that results in more finances and resources being needed. We need more issues to be investigated now, and therefore more people, more money. These are all barriers to an independent sports ombudsman. People may not want that. So
who has the finance? Is it BG or who has the finance?
So I would take it out of the sporting bodies, and we would say someone like Sport England, or otherwise, Department for Culture, Media and Sport, similar to, Ofsted and others. We would be saying that it should be independent. So even though the sports would have to contribute financially, it would be run by an independent body. That seems to be the right thing, because otherwise, people would be criticizing BG or football or wherever else, saying you're only getting your people on the board, even though it's independent in title, it's not in reality. The timescale for a sports ombudsman is getting political will and people understanding, actually, if you police it properly, it's done right. If it's not, people lose trust. And this is really important. We see this with the police at the moment in the country. People are losing faith in the police, because there's some bad uns. It's pointless shying away from it. the police often don't take things seriously. If there's child abuse images, is the criminal justice system punishing these individuals? Do you just get a suspended sentence or not? Because there's not enough, money in the system, not enough prison spaces, etc. So one of the key things which we need to do is to show why this is needed. How many people come forward now as it is? If there was independence in place, would it be twice as many, 10 times as many? If that's the answer, you must move to a sports ombudsman because it shows there's a problem here, which has not been addressed currently. So your simple question is about how long will it take? It comes down to political will and desire of others to push it. The louder the voice, the greater the push. And that's what we've seen with #MeToo, Black Lives Matter, and other movements. We need levels.
How many MPs have you got fighting it? Have you got many MPs behind it, or do you need more, or what do you need?
Yeah, the problem which we've had in the last couple of years, and this is not a political point before anyone bites my head. So I try to be apolitical publicly because I think that, we're talking about child abuse, it should have no political value. But in the last 5 years, there's been so much movement in justice secretaries, prime ministers were on, was it number 3 or 4, whether it's 5 maybe, in 5 years. So even if I'm speaking to you both today, in 6 months we're speaking to someone else, and then you've got to learn the job, and it continually changes. Home Secretary, Justice Secretary, the Culture Sports Secretary. It is so hard just to get hold of someone and get them to bite and then follow it through, because laws take time. You can't get something pushed through in a month. It takes time to get things on board. So we're hoping after this election, we do have some steady ground for a year or two, whereby we can get MPs on board and bite for a year or two so they can really get invested and understand the benefit. And that's the issue. We've got lots of MPs from different, Tories, Lib Dem, Greens, Labour, of course, sorry, I miss Labour. So it is cross-party appeal because this is an obvious one. If you've got children, if you're interested in sport, if you're just a normal human being, it does make logical sense. And that's this is not politics delaying it. It's just not politics, but it's just the way the political field is at the moment. It's just so interesting in Westminster, sadly. Many things are just not processing and progressing as they should be. And that's not a political point. Again, but it has been quite difficult for the last couple of years. So that's the sports ombudsman question, which again was quite simple, but there are issues in place. And again, if people are interested, I think, please do push your sporting bodies, push your MPs, reach out to Tani, myself, and others. The more voices we get, the better it is. I think that's really important. A petition like a change.org or government petition, you mean?
Yeah.
The change.org is a really good initiative. It raises public opinion, but doesn't compel people to do anything. So the government petitions do if you get a certain number of
100,000 is the minimum, isn't it, for the government petition?
It's 10,000, I think, to consider. 100,000 means it needs to be debated, I think, in Westminster, in the House of Commons. But I think it's 10,000 for them to consider it. They may just consider it and go, look, we're not going to consider it. That is their consideration. But 100,000 means I think it has to be debated.
All these people, yeah, consider it now.
Exactly, yeah. Trust me, I've been there a number of times.
No.
So, yeah, thanks for that. So, no, but yes, but yeah. But I think, yeah, you are both right. Again, how do you kind of garner that attention? It has to be across all sports. And I think that's a really important thing to say. It's not just football. It's not just gymnastics.
Yeah.
It's the same issues repeating themselves, which I see continuously. 22 sports and counting, sadly, I've brought civil actions in to date. Same issues in each sport. So similar to religions, Catholics, Church of England, Jewish, Muslim, you will see the same kind of common factors as you would anticipate, to be frank. Some of the other questions relate to the ICP, so it's independent complaints process.
Yes, this marvelous structure.
Yeah, and I think when we spoke last time, I know there was kind of some issues with the transmission.
Yes.
Unicorns don't exist. And I think sometimes when people see things, you want it to be what you believe it to be. And I think it's really important to sometimes scrape behind that kind of gold veneer and see what is this? Who's it for? What is it? There's been issues before in football and other things whereby it's kind of an internal disciplinary process. So let's say one of you works in a BG as an example, right? And there's an issue there, performance disciplinary issue, and they want to raise it. This is considering actually, has there been failings? That's what it's looking at. And we've seen this recently with Gwyn Williams in football, Dario Gradi in football, and others. The idea is, has there been failings by that individual? That's the reason why BG lawyers are allowed in, because they are prosecuting, in essence, that individual. You have broken the regulations, and therefore you need to be considered. Have you broken the regulations? Same as the club. Has there been failings or not? That's why the BG lawyers are involved. You as a complainant, in essence, is just a witness. You are just a witness, and there's no disrespect there. But it's not that they're investigating you. In a criminal case, you would have the CPS acting for you as a complainant,
Yeah.
And the defendant would have his defense lawyers.
Right.
But it is more of a complaints process. So it's BG investigating failings and considering failings, and you are more like a witness in essence. You give your witness evidence, and that's what happens.
So who's representing you? Who's representing the gym?
Well, I mean, BG technically are doing that because.
So hang on a minute. Let me get this right. BG are representing the gymnast that's complaining about BG or said coach in BG. They have a lawyer. The actual witness has nothing. Is that right?
It seems to be, yeah. And we've seen this as well for kind of disciplinary process in football. There's been Gwyn Williams, who's recently reported on for racial abuse at Chelsea Football Club, who's in the Athletic this week. I dealt with those cases, the racial abuse in football cases, and my clients were not represented in the disciplinary process. Many of them were not actually told of the results either, and they were not published. And the same as with the ICP, I think that people have been relying upon this, and it isn't conclusive. Even if it was, it cannot be relied upon in a civil case. So a disciplinary process, an ICP report, a civil judge must make their own decisions. There's a case of Lindsay and Hoyle from a while back. So what I say about this in the ICP is that you don't know how many people have contributed. You don't have the element of control. The best advice is to pursue criminal, civil, ICP, but do not think they're mutually exclusive, and do not think it's one after another. We would recommend disclosing abuse to the police, waiting for the criminal case to conclude, and then pursuing the civil case. ICP disciplinary has to wait anyway until the criminal case concludes, similar to a civil. And with the ICP, and I've mentioned in my last piece with you, we did conclude the Stan Wild cases before the ICP had concluded. So we didn't need that because you've already been disciplined. I mean, if he's already been disciplined, he's already been sanctioned, he's already on the expelled list. What's the point of the ICP?
All right.
Yeah. What's the ICP going to say? There's been failings. Well, no, blank Sherlock. No surprise Sherlock. We know there's been failings, and that's why they're expelled. That's why it's been safeguarding failures. We know that. So that's why I say I don't believe in unicorns. You just need to understand what it means and what the elements are.
Dino, sorry to stop you, but I want to ask a point with what you're speaking about there, because everything you said like this last time is what really hit the community hard. I think a lot of people are confused where they stand legally with the ICP. But let me ask you this question. What would you need? Let's use Stan Wild as a case. What would you need to reopen that case, or to get someone else to get a verdict against Stan Wild? What needs to happen in that instance?
So with Stan Wild, and we've taken on some further gymnast cases recently, actually, which we're going to publicize soon.
Good.
The key thing, it comes down to evidence, to be totally frank. As lawyers, the basic premise of what we have to do is that we have to prove that these acts took place as alleged, and that it was abusive, and that someone should be held accountable for it. If you make an allegation against Dave, but it's just your word against Dave, well, it's your word against Dave. It's 50-50, isn't it? And that does cause problems then. How can we make those findings? How can I be 51% certain it did happen? When Dave has no other complaints, Dave will get 100 people saying he's amazing. You've just got your word. There's no other evidence. However, it's you and a lot of other people. It's supportive. It's helpful. It's similar to Jimmy Savile.
Yeah.
We know Jimmy Savile was, in all likelihood, an abuser based on a number of people who came forward after he died. So the key thing which we are looking for is evidence, and so is a defendant. The defendant, will instruct lawyers who will consider it. Lawyers can and should be given the best advice possibly to their clients. If I have a client and there's only your word against the abuser, the prospects aren't great, to be totally frank. It's really difficult, and the defendant knows that as well. If, however, we're able to show there's significant evidence, if they've been expelled, if it's obviously criminal convictions, the defendant and their lawyers should be taking stock of that, which means then that the case will conclude quicker, because if you know there's a good case here, you're banged to rights, why would you drag it out? Why would you expend good money after bad money? Why would you expend a PR, put the survivor through it? And again, I think BG are, in essence, a good institution. Most of the people involved in gymnastics are good people, to be totally frank, and no one would want this. Why would you be involved in doing this? So the key thing is what we need is evidence, and we need people to be able to talk. And that's the reason why, again, I demand, a sports ombudsman. People need to be able to trust the system. At the moment, you've got an ICP which is going very slowly. People think it's a unicorn. People don't really know what it is. People don't trust it. There's lots of negativity for people who are already.
Coaches are still coaching. So these poor kids are re-traumatizing it, waiting for these dates, and then these coaches just go around.
Yeah, and that's the problem, and that's why we've and that's why we didn't wait for the ICP, and we wouldn't do in other circumstances either. The information and the evidence they're collating and looking at are in essence the same as what you were looking at in a civil action in any event. So if we're both looking at the same evidence, but one of them we can control and progress through the courts if we need to, etc., and we get the resolution which our clients want. They want admissions of liability, responsibility, culpability.
Yeah, and they need it.
Yeah, and they want findings that this happened and it shouldn't have happened. They want someone to appreciate the impact on them. The ICP won't be looking at the impact on you, won't be arranging medical appointments, looking for your medical records, considering, because that's not what it's about. The ICP isn't about that. Like I said, the ICP is about the fail-ins, not the failed, those who were failed, the victims and survivors. So your question was, how do we reopen things? How do we reconsider stuff? It comes down to evidence. If, however, even when you do try to reopen it, it's still only 1-2 people's word against, someone who's been a coach for 40 years, natural justice must take place in that if there's not enough evidence, doesn't mean that it didn't happen, doesn't mean we don't believe you. There's just not enough evidence to prove it. And that does happen.
Well, look, I've got this hypothetical situation because I've been getting this a lot. So I'm going to give you this hypothetical scenario.
Is it hypothetical, Carlton, or no?
Well, look, let's put it purpose. It's hypothetical.
Oh, fine. Okay, all right. It's hypothetical. Got it.
I am in a group ICP case against British Gymnastics, but I don't know the other people in the ICP. I may have evidence towards said coach, and someone over there may have evidence towards said coach, but we don't know each other, and we have no idea that we could be witnesses for each case. If I'm in a group ICP case, can I be a witness for someone else in their ICP case, hypothetically?
The answer is yes. You can be a witness in numerous cases. That is correct. And that's quite common as well, because, of course, if you're investigating the hypothetical coach, which we'll call him Dave, again, apologies to anyone called Dave who's watching.
There's probably a few called Dave.
There probably is, yeah.
He's Scotland, but
yeah. Well,
Dave Kenwright.
Yeah.
We're just using the name, but then again,
Dino full.
Yeah. We'll think of another name. We'll call him D for ease, right? So against D. So if D's failed and is investigating D, you have to look at all the different complainants because there may be different factors, but there's also similar fact evidence. It all contributes to it. And we look again at the Stan Wild case. Those complainants didn't know each other. They were even totally different time periods, totally different generations, with total respect to all the women involved.
Right.
But it's a similar fact evidence which you're looking at.
And so how do we get them in touch? Dino, how do we get, in this hypothetical situation,
yes,
how would people be able to contact other people that would have evidence that would support their case, but because they're in this hypothetical group with no communication of that, they're never going to know? How can we get people to speak and communicate? Because I know, or this is real now, forget the hypotheses. I know of 3 people that have got something against the same coach that don't know they got it against the same coach.
So,
and I have to give them, I'm, protecting their anonymity, and I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
How do we sort this out?
So, often you're looking at the lightning rod of action. So that means if someone's pursuing a criminal action, civil action, or so on, it's usually a rod. So it would be the police, it'd be a lawyer, it'd be a campaign group. That's what we're looking at. And then, for example, sometimes we will, be in contact. We'll do a piece and we'll put it out, and people will come to us through social media and other forums. That happens. Sometimes we will contact the police and say, hi, we're pursuing this issue. We know you've investigated him before. Can you please pass a letter on to all the people who've complained? We're not breaking anyone's confidentiality. I'm just saying, hi, my name's Dino. I'm pursuing this action. Can you please contact me if you want to? Dear, and this is Dear X. So we haven't got a clue who they are, their age, where they're based. And sometimes they'll contact us, sometimes they won't. If we've seen journalists have covered a story, we go, hi, dear Steve, not Dave for a change. Dear Steve, we've seen you cover this story. Please, can you pass on our contact details to people because we are looking for witnesses, is what we're looking for. So you can see how it's all garnered. You could also ask the ICP, going, hi, ICP, we know you're investigating Carlton as a coach. We're going to call him X.
Coaching,
yeah,
so
I know.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we're going to call him X from now on for ease. Okay, so we're investigating X, which is a totally made-up person. Again, apologies, I'm called X. You're investigating X. Can you please pass on our contact details because we're looking to bring action? The ICP and others should have no issues with that, you would assume, and they could pass on the contact details. So you can then see how all of that kind of collation of information can come to a source, which could then proceed with a criminal action, could then proceed with a civil action. So that's you collate it all. It's also down to the survivors and the complainants to do so. So they have the control. We don't know who these random people are. We don't have any of the contact details. So it's up to you. You keep that control. If you want to contact the police, lawyer, whoever it is, those are options. But there are pools of information. Sometimes it is survivor groups. Sometimes it's therapy groups. But knowledge is power. Whoever that wise person said that is, I can't remember who it is. But it is. And that's what I mean. You've got to harness it. It's a bit like a wild stallion. If you can direct them in the right way, you win the Grand National. Otherwise, you're going around kicking people in the face. There's no benefit. You've got to control it.
Can I ask you this question? In this hypothetical scenario, do you think in 3 years you'd be able to correlate this material and move forward with an ICP group?
So
if you had this information for 3 years, nearly 4 years.
I think if you had this information, BG have confirmed already, and they've had to get a lot more safeguarding officers and investigate more than they did, 10, 20 years ago. There's lots of issues and resources we need to implement. I think the ICP should run alongside a civil action. If a criminal action has already been completed or can't be possible because of the type of abuse it is, it should be running alongside it, and you'd be looking to progress matters as quickly as possible. Often when that happens, you will find the ICP and the defendant's lawyers will help to make that process work quicker somehow. That does happen, and then this is what happens. Things move along. So I think it's, again, collating that information, making sure there's support in place is important, and also knowing you're not alone. Even if you don't want to proceed with a criminal action, civil action, or anything, to know, unfortunately, you're not the only one. It wasn't your fault. He did it to others. X did. That in itself is powerful. And that's why I say sharing this knowledge. And I think any institution which has that should be doing that? Should we be proactively sharing it, collating it? There are some really good organizations out there, by the way. So Everyone's Invited is an organization talking about abuse in schools, and they've listed all of the schools on there. So you can go on the school and go, look, my school's on there. I know they've had allegations. Alex Renton has a list, a database of allegations of child abuse allegations at boarding schools. There's other sporting groups which have, again, details. As lawyers, we obviously remember in our mind the cases which we've represented, but we also keep a note, and we have systems there as well. So we know you want to make an allegation against X, let's put X into our system. Actually, we haven't acted in a case against X, but we did have 2 people made allegations against X. So there's, again, knowledge is power, and I think it's really important. That's the same with the sports ombudsman. If MPs and others know how serious this is and how big an issue it is, they will act, I believe, because they will see the seriousness. But if they don't know how serious it is, why would they take it? Why would it be ahead of their priority list? That's the problem.
Sure.
So that's what I would say about that. There's a question here whereby, can you be in charge of several linked cases as well as individual cases? There is a bit of a misunderstanding, it seems, in gymnastics, whereby, well, the simple answer is yes, to be totally frank. I've acted in a number of cases. Well, I've acted in lots of cases of individuals. I've also acted in lots of cases against the same perpetrator and same, defendant. They're all linked cases, as linked as similar fact evidence, and often that would make sense. We acted for a number of linked cases for the alleged abuse by Stan Wild. That's a clear example in gymnastics. We acted for lots of linked cases for abuse by Barry Burnell at Crewe Alexandra or Bob Higgins at Southampton Football Club. It's quite common, to be frank. So the answer is yes. And if anything, it helps, because it means that that lawyer's got the knowledge. They've got the common strands of these linked cases, but obviously they're still all individuals. You'd be hoping that to take place, because that way you'd be proposing one trial for all of these individual cases. But that means witness A doesn't have to give evidence 10 times at 10 separate trials. You want one trial, one evidence being given. But yes, I do that day in, day out, with total respect. It makes totally logical sense. It saves time, saves money, which is better for everyone involved. And
Dino, can I just also throw this out there while you're waxing lyrical? Because I know there's parameters that you can and you can't. What do you need to take a case? What needs to be presented to you? Like, so I'm already involved in an ICP. I'm going nowhere. I need your help. Can you help me? What do I need to give you to help me? Where do I stand?
So I think that for everyone who's suffered abuse, you need to consider what you want to achieve. Do you just want to be able to talk to people? Do you want to speak to a therapist, speak to your parents, partner, whatever else? Do you want some form of accountability, closure, justice? Do you want your abuser to face criminal justice? You need to consider what you want first off. That's the first key point of all of this. Question is, what's the point? Why are you doing this? Once you know that, and you know what the investment is, personally, this is what I'm looking to achieve, then speak to a lawyer. You can be signposted and give you advice about the criminal justice system and other venues, and the same is for therapy support up and down the country, and also give you advice about a civil case. The question is that when someone comes to me with, an issue, you go through individual factors. One of the key things is obviously you've got to test the evidence. Are they a credible witness? You have to assess it. You have to assess, is there significant evidence to prove this? If there's already convictions, that's very helpful. If there's not, similar to Sam Wild, is there enough evidence in my, heart and head to believe that I can prove this? And then if we take it on, we've got to take it on with a view of going all the way to trial. I don't take it on with let's, give it a go and see how things plan out. If you invest in your time, your money, your name, and that person's emotions, then I've got to do it right for them. Otherwise, I'm just going, let's give it a punt, guys. Let's take a 60-yard shot goal Hopefully it goes in. Who knows? It will go in once or
But
twice, but
I've
most of the
asked
time it
you
won't.
this. I've asked a horrible question that I'm sure anyone watching is going to ask, and I don't mean to embarrass you, but I don't
Yeah.
know. To get to that stage, what's the cost involved? Because I'm an abused gymnast. I'm just working class. Speaking to a lawyer I know costs me money. What I'm saying is, how much does that cost me? Or is there a way I can get that information cheaply before I proceed with the case? Because I'm sure there's many that might want to, Dino, but as soon as you hear lawyer, I've got to be honest, you're scared in your back pocket. All right. And
Yeah,
I'm
no,
just,
no, no.
I know
I
it's a
get that.
horrible question, but these
Yeah,
are young girls or boys with
yeah,
young parents that are trying their hardest just to pay the fees for them to
yeah,
go abuse, really,
yeah,
let alone a lawyer on top. So
yeah.
what's the financial mechanics of that? Like, is it a no win, no fee? Is it something, explain, please.
Yeah.
If
So
that doesn't embarrass you.
yeah, no. It's been many things probably should embarrass me, but they don't. So I'm a working class lad. You can probably guess my accent. I didn't go to boarding school or anything like that. My dad's a builder. My mum was a secretary. Um, and money is important. Money often is a barrier. Lawyers are often scary. You've got an old, predominantly white man in a pinstripe suit sat in an ivory tower, talk about something very serious. They charge, 500 quid an hour plus VAT, etc. Um, and you've still got that lack of trust in people in positions of authority. And, will I be believed? Am I wasting someone's time? Is this serious enough? They've got all of these fears. And so we're going against someone who's very powerful. X, the coach, which we've now named.
Mm.
X is a powerful person. He's been doing it for a long time. Position of trust, power, authority, recognized in local community. He may have carried the torch through a city for London, Olympics, etc. Really highly powerful person. So it's you against them, and then you're having to pay out. So what we do is that the initial kind of telephone calls, emails, consultation, whatever it is, it's confidential. We're not going to tell anyone else.
Yeah.
You can ask whatever questions you want. There's no obligation. And we then look to, if we are able to take the case on, we will often look towards a no-win, no-fee agreement, the conditional fee agreement. If we can't take it on, it is what it is. And we will just tell you, fair enough, it may be half an hour of our time, but it's worthwhile doing that.
So what let me just break this down. You're saying I could get your expertise, your knowledge on whether I've got a case or not, and I might not have to shell out anything before you tell me you're going to go through with it. You wouldn't go through with it if you weren't confident of the case.
At that moment, yeah. At that moment in time, yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I think there's a lot of people listening now that be. Hopefully their ears are pricked up like mine did, because I think you're a great person to speak to or to represent Leigh as a law firm. And that's probably going to break down a few barriers. I didn't expect it to be. I wouldn't have to shell out thousands before I could get to the stage to know whether I had a viable case or not. I think that's great for the community to hear that. I really do think
But that's the reason why we talk about the kind of no win, no fee as well, is that, we want to do the right thing by you. I want to be a winner, full stop. So I want to win for you. I have to win for me and the partners, because we're putting the money in. So win, lose, no win, no fee. You come out with zero, you go in with zero. So you don't spend anything, you don't lose anything. So you're fine. Emotionally, you're not, because emotionally you've gone against the institution and you fail. So we can't let you down. And that's really important to stress. Even though you may not lose any money, you are going to lose time and emotion and energy. And that's why I'm frustrated with the ICP. You'll invest in that time. But financially, we invest the money and the time, and no win, no fee. So if we're taking the case on, we're betting on you winning. We take on risky cases, to be totally frank. We take on cases sometimes which you'd think, well, the police said they couldn't charge this bloke. What are you doing? Well, I believe there's enough evidence to prove this. I believe that we can win this case. And then we proceed down that route, and we are successful. There are some cases we won't succeed with, but we're always honest with people, and we have to be honest with the other partners and say, look, we're taking on a really risky case. We're pushing something like the body shaming and ballet cases which we took on. We succeeded before, and we succeeded in gymnast cases before all of these other gymnast cases you've heard and seen about have done so. So we've taken on risky cases. there's a huge risk we could have lost them, but we tell the clients that. We say, look, just so you know, we believe it's important to push it. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. If we lose, significant sums of money. But, we believe that's the right thing to do, and it's an important thing to push. So,
Thank you for the answer and the fact that you actually do this work. I mean, it's all right talking it, but you've actually done it. You've put your balls on the line, represented people, put your partner's reputation on the line, and won. I've got to say it's very good, especially for people that have been abused. I couldn't think of a nicer fella, if I'm honest. I mean, if I get in trouble, you're representing me, that's for sure.
Well, we'll have to assess you, Carlton, and stuff. Yeah, there's no guarantee there, mate.
I've got to find a coach. I've got to find an abusive coach and say, don't abuse me.
I got a whole list of gyms you can go to.
Bless you. There's some other questions here about if you took on a case, would you personally be talking in court on their behalf? The way it works, so you have solicitors and you have barristers. You also have doctors and you have surgeons. So barristers, I've always considered them, there's no disrespect to any barristers, I've always considered them to be like strikers in football, whereby often they scored a goal at the very end. Whereas solicitors, we are the coach, the manager, the physio, the chairman, the goalkeeper, defender, and the midfielder, and we also score often as well. And there's no disrespect, but we do all of that. We take on the case, we risk assess the case. Often we only involve barristers later on, to be frank, when there's potential trial, because they have a lot more experience and they're cheaper than solicitors, generally speaking. But we do know the case in and out. We've briefed it in and out. We know the clients in and out and the witness evidence. I do most of my own advocacy in court just because I think I know the case better and I'm better at doing so. However, for trial, you do want a barrister to do it because they have more experience and they can take out those kind of 3 or 4 weeks to prep and do things. And I will help them to do it, but then they talk. They will action my game plan and the things we want. And there's no arrogance about that. We work with the barrister to do that. Only about 2 to 3% of cases go to trial, and most settle beforehand, to be totally frank, 97, 98%. The key thing to do as a lawyer to pick up on which ones are going to be the 2 to 3%, ideally, because you need to tell the client, look, 97, 98% cases settled. That could be your mantra, but your case against X is going to be one of the 2 to 3% because it's a body shaming case in ballet, never been tested before. Actually, we settled it. We have got others which may not settle and are going to be one of those 2 to 3% potentially. We've had the racial abuse case in football, same thing. You were one of the 2 to 3%. They settled a matter of weeks prior to trial. So these are the kind of factors you have in place. But yeah, we would be doing the talking predominantly just because we feel competent in doing so. We think it's the best thing to do. It also saves time. Instead of what I've got to instruct you to talk for exactly what I'm going to say, which is what I do it myself. If it's going to take longer, then you would instruct a barrister to do so. The same is for something like painting your house, for example. Painted all my houses. I only had one house at a time. I've moved house. But I've tried to do it myself. Saying that, I've had to get someone to paint the downstairs in my house recently because I've got a very young son. Everything takes 6 times as long when he's around, bless him. It was cheaper rather than me taking like a week or 2 weeks off. It was cheap. So it's just that cost benefit analysis.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But actually, and he's done a really good job, to be fair to him. But most work I do in the house myself. Electrics, plumbing, I don't. I get someone in to do it because I've electrocuted myself. I've flooded the house.
Qualified sparks, you can use me now.
Exactly. Mates race. But that's the kind of thing. If someone can do it better, someone's got the specialism. But most things you can do yourself. It saves time, saves money, and it's the same standard. So with most things in court we would do, apart from complex matters where you'd like to get a second opinion. This is what they are. We're all lawyers, get a second opinion, or proceeding to trial. Where again you'd want someone with that specialism. They have a lot more experience of talking and do cross-examination. So yeah, they'd be better placed than me, I would say. So that's that question. There's thing about historic cases. I don't like the word historic.
Me neither.
Never
Me
have.
neither. The abuse is current. I hate that word historic. That's a right on Tosh.
Yeah, it's people who do it for self-preservation. So the reason why from a psyche. So if I stole a pencil from you, Carlton, 10 years ago, is that historic theft? If I punched you 20 years ago, Carlton, is that historic physical assault? No, of course not. You say it's assault. You say it's a robbery. You say it's theft. If I killed someone 20 years ago, is that historic murder, by the way? No, it's just murder, isn't it?
That's right.
But for abuse, they are very keen to say historic, historical, non-recent, because it sounds like just because it sounds like back in the day. You know, back in the day, you know, Carlton, you didn't have mobile phones. You know, when you were in school in you know, whenever it was. I was going to guess then, but I just stopped myself then. Yeah, but like you didn't have phones in the 2000s or wherever it was, you know. So it's just that kind of historical. Back in the day, we had black and white TV. You know, back in the day, we didn't have this, didn't have that. Now it's totally different. Now it's, you know, we're totally safe now. It doesn't happen now. It gives you that false sense of security. The fact is, abuse happens now. I ask for clients who are still now 12, 13, 14. It's still going to take people 20 to 30 years to disclose. It's still as difficult to disclose. So there is a false level of security. So when we talk about how can historical, non-recent cases complain, it's the same as any other form. You know, raise it with the police, speak to lawyers, raise it with the local authority. They have a duty to investigate because often the abuse is still in operation, and if not, often those failings and safeguarding gaps are still in play. So it's exactly the same. There's a question about emotional abuse being recognised by the law, and there is a difference with the criminal law. You know, racially aggravated offences were recognised start of 2000s. Sexual abuse has been recognised for a long time, of course. You know, 56 onwards, there's been lots of legislation and laws about it. Emotional abuse, not the same, but that's different between the criminal law and the civil law. So pursuing civil law in the High Court, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, harassment, bullying are recognised. They've been recognised in the employment courts for a long time and recognised in the civil courts as well. You know, the body shaming in ballet cases which were acted on technically are all verbal abuse, so verbal, emotional abuse. They're not physical assaults, they're not sexual abuse. So it is recognised by the law, but in the civil sense rather than the criminal sense. There's, I think that's most. Yeah, I think that's most of the questions. Obviously, I think the ICP so verbal, emotional.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
I know you just heard your voice. It's just okay. I was just
Sorry. That's right. But I mean, I think most people are focused on the ICP. I think you do need to consider once the ICP is over, what happens then? Do they then say, okay, we understand the impact, sorry? Do we say, okay, we understand the impact and we want to consider compensation? Well, how do they consider that? I haven't really looked into that. So I think it's just understanding that. And understanding you have a voice, I think it's really important, but you need to use your voice in the right space. You know, screaming into a bath of water doesn't work. You need to direct it to the right people in the right forum even, sorry, and making sure you have these golden points in your head. If I'm talking, what's the point? If I'm just going to say gymnastics is rubbish and they're all abusers and nothing's going to work, it's not going to get you what you want, actually, that closure, that justice. So I think if there are people out there, you know, you have to use your joined up thinking, your joined up voices. Those who speak together are usually louder, to be totally frank. We've seen that with hashtag Me Too. We've seen that for abuse in football. We've seen that in Black Lives Matter. People will push back. People didn't like people taking the knee during football matches, all lives matter, etc. But there was a unified voice. The difference is with gymnastics at the moment, it's just different people in Newcastle, in Bristol, in Oxford, in Manchester, saying random things, but you're shouting into the silence. You know, we can't hear you. So we can't hear you. We can't act on it. We can't act on it. Same issue, different day. We keep on happening and nothing will change. And the next generation will have the same problems. And that's the reason why we're really keen to do things raising awareness in the media, using Unwide and others. We have that. Just got to harness it. It's really important.
Exactly. Everyone should come together, speak and share the information and move as one. What we're finding is, I think it's strange, and I don't know if it's because of the British gymnastics culture, Dino, but they're very competitive. It's like, I'm not saying it's a PE contest, but it seems to be everybody wants to be first to break the story rather than let's share the story and let's get them governed. I think we can get governed as one. I don't care if there's 10 people in my group and there's 1,000 people in another group over there. Just speak. Let's make 1,010. What I don't. It's.
And I think there's a vast range of people. There's like gymnasts from like this era, gymnasts from that era, parents that are holding on to guilt. They put their kids in and they don't speak to their kids anymore. There's coaches, there's officials. They don't really want to talk to the gymnasts. The gymnasts don't trust them. It's just like, forget it all, just get it out and let's go.
Yeah, and we've seen this, with all the boarding school cases we've taken on, for all the abuse in religious institutions we've done, abuse in the scouts, men, women, boys, girls, all over the country over decades, from the 60s into the 2020s, I've dealt with cases. Yeah. So I do think that is, that is rubbish. That point about, it's just the way gymnastics is in football. We had people from the amateur game, people who were abused at Southampton, Chelsea, Crewe, Blackpool, the list goes on and on. Different decades, different age groups. It's totally doable in all those other areas I just mentioned. So just do it. The alternative is that you just sink.
Because you're fighting one thing. It's just the one thing. It's the child abuse in sport. Done. Like, if you agree with that, come to us. Done. Yeah, exactly. I don't care about anything else you think about. If you agree with that, let's go.
Yeah. The one thing I would say is that often with abuse survivors, you're treading water far too long. But you're pretending everything's fine. It's all fine, Jack. You don't ask for a life rest. You don't tell anyone you're drowning. You just pretend everything's fine.
Right.
Once you do disclose and you go through something like the ICP, you can't keep on treading water, because then you're like, oh God, you will always know, we're going to be rescued now. That's when you drown, actually. It's that last bit. Same as a marathon. It's always the last mile kills you, because it's like, oh, we'll need it at the finish line. That's the one which really hurts. And the same for this. You need to progress. You need to move forward. If it's not going to move forward, tell me. And it's fine, and I can move forward. I can move forward my life in another manner.
Right.
You just need to know. I think giving people hope or false hope is one of the worst things you can do. Yeah. And we've seen this, whether it's cancer patients, whether it's abuse survivors. You want to give people hope. You want to build their trust. But what I'm very keen to do is to be black and white with people, and that's why I always am. In that, if it's difficult, it's hard, we have to tell you, just so you can process and go, right, I've got terminal cancer. I can process that now. It's going to be bloody painful for me to understand it and get my head around it, but I can then progress. Saying, got cancer, but you may be all right. It should be okay. You could live for 20 years. Who knows? This gives you false hope. And then, you get caught out, and it's really bad. It's really painful. And this comes from, family experience and other things. So that's why I say, how long is your ICP going to take? What's the result of the ICP for you? What happens after the ICP? Are we looking at half a decade of your life doing this? Is that what we're saying? Is that what you want? Because you may think, no, I want justice, but I don't want to wait a decade. Absolutely fine. You can process it, understand it, do that balance, pros and cons, and go, right, well, at least I know knowledge is power, like I said.
Yeah.
And then off I go. And then my view may be very different to you, but it's your life. You make your own decisions. But again, you need to know that. Same as with an operation, you need to have an operation X on your leg. Chance of survival is 10%. Okay, I probably won't do it. But if it's 100%, I'll crack on. You need to have that knowledge. And I think that at the moment, it's not really there. And what we do find is that the longer it drags on, more and more people are drowning.
For sure.
And they can't keep using them as experiments. It's almost like, let's try it this way this time. Oh no, let's try it this way. That didn't work. When these poor, people are suffering.
Yeah, they really have lack of trust, and then you're letting them down again. And that's the problem. You can only cry wolf so many times, and people don't come back then. So if people are interested in any initiatives to change, speak to your MPs, look at abuse charities, contact me, more than happy to do so. If there's any questions or queries, obviously contact people. There's tons of lawyers, there's tons of knowledge out there. Speak to people. Do not listen solely to other abuse survivors, with total respect, because what happens is there's a limited amount of knowledge, and there's no disrespect, but then you all got a limited amount of knowledge all sharing with each other. It doesn't get you any further. If there's a blockage, you need to ask why. Most things in life, why? Why is it like this? Why is it like that? Can this be fixed?
Exactly.
And sometimes there's good answers, often there's not. And people go, just because, no one's really pushing this, we're not really getting the right voice, you didn't tell me you wanted to chase this up. Things are not pushed on then. But yeah, these ICPs, the fact it's been a full Olympic cycle is bad. It's really bad. And that isn't, when you consider the numbers who came forward in football as an example in other sports, it has been slow. And it's really been harmful. And then if you had to say, if someone was going to say, oh, we suffered abuse in gymnastics today by X, what would you say? You'd say, well,
speak to Dino. That's the first thing I'd say. Bypass everything else. Speak to Dino. 18 months, you'll have a conclusion.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
I think that with the concern is that lots of people say, don't bother with the ICP, don't bother about raising a complaint, don't bother about speaking to the police. And that's the problem. It just means then abusers get away with it. And it's the same with the media. When we see the issues with the criminal justice system, it is difficult, it is hard, but there's reasons for that. But we do need to keep on pushing it. We need to. Even though it's hard, we need to do it, because otherwise abusers get away with it and safeguarding isn't picked up on. So it's easy enough for me to say that, and I know that, but the plea is, please believe in the system, and let's work together to create change, hopefully.
I think it's when you said it last time, neither are mutually exclusive. You need your civil case and your ICP together. But I think there's a lot of people that are just sitting there with an ICP thinking, whoopie-doo, we're going to get a conclusion. And they have no idea that it's just not fit for purpose. And it doesn't matter if you're rubbing shoulders with 20 other people in an ICP that ain't fit for purpose, you ain't going anywhere.
The question still remains, how many ICPs have completed, by the way? Do you know? How many ICP reports have you read, by the way?
I don't know of any. I don't know of any, Dino. Has there been any conclusion?
I think you need to ask your viewers that. In fact, some have concluded.
Okay.
Some have. So I've seen some.
Can anyone who's got a completed ICP get in touch with Gymnasts Voice, tell us the concluding, how long it took, please, and what was the outcome? How about that?
So I've seen some. So I know some have, but they're not able to be published.
But why can't they be published? That's what I don't get. Why can't they be published?
Because it's confidential, it's private, it's looking into safeguarding failures and the alleged abuse at all.
Outcome. So you've gone into this ICP against said coach. Said coach has been expelled or safeguarding or on the ban list now. You're telling me you can't make that public?
Can you find the one into York Gymnastics Club or Stanwell? Can you find that ICP report?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can have views and so on. Most things in life I consider to be black and white. You should be able to go on to BG's website. All those people on the expelled list. Can you see the ICP reports next to their names? No. Okay. So your magical unicorn of an ICP, like I said to you, it concludes. Can you tell anyone? Is it ever going to be published? That's what I'm saying to you. You really do need to know what you're signing up to. Is it some magic beans which Jack's given you? Or is it actually going to achieve your aims and your wishes? If you want these findings to be published and to be found, and if you want accountability, is this going to give it to you? So you may need a civil case, we may want an ICP, but they're not mutually exclusive. And to be totally frank, they've been going on for a long time. It's been some of years on end. And it is a problem. It is a problem. So I mean, I try to be jovial about these matters. I try to bring a human angle to it. Yeah. But the simple fact is, look for an ICP report. You can't find them. Why? And then does that achieve your aims?
And the sanctions. I think the first sanction is 6 months plus some retraining, and then the second sanction I think goes up to a year. But they're still sitting in an ICP trying to work all that out, and then you're not going to say anything. So little Sarah down the road comes to gymnastics, I want to know, well, that coach had a sanction against her for a year, had a few bits of safeguarding. Do I really want to go down there? No, I don't.
Yeah, yeah. It's a problem. It is a problem. But what I would say is that, BG is a good organization. Most of the people there are good. And I think gymnastics is a really good thing. What we don't want to do is to destroy gymnastics, but what we do have to say is that this is difficult for any institution, any business, any corporation to accept failing, whether it's Skoda and their cars rusting, allegedly, whether it's a phone company and their batteries exploding on planes, whether it's an oil company and they've got a leak in an ocean somewhere. It's difficult for people to accept failings and blame, but we do need to hold them to account, and soon. And I don't think waiting 3-4 years for a report, which is then not public or it still doesn't address the issues, is the solution.
Especially while the coach can still coach while he's under investigation. That's the ridiculous thing. And I agree with everything you're saying. Gymnastics is a wonderful sport, and we need to preserve it for the children. But I'm not having it that this culture is allowed to, what you just said, allow something to come for 4 years to come to no clue competition with no public record of it anywhere. And for me, if I'm the abusive coach, to still be allowed to work throughout that whole investigation. That's just ridiculous, Dino. That's just ridiculous. And I don't see why a kid would want to complain if said coach also knows I've complained against you, and he's still going to be coaching.
This is why it goes back to the very first point we said, the independent sports ombudsman, because that's the whole point. If it's independent, it's been independently reviewed by someone totally outside gymnastics. So it's not about gymnastics, which is when you said about 10 minutes ago, perhaps it's just the way BG is. This is the way gymnastics always been. Well, it's not.
What do they do now? Because the thing is, I agree with you. I want BG governed. Let's get the ombudsman in straight away. But the thing is, we haven't. So right now, we've got an ungoverned culture where if I complain, it's an ICP, to which BG get a lawyer. I don't. I'm just a witness.
So can you even get an ICP?
Right? Oh, well, yeah, it's true. You need to be in that 52
you
day
just have to
period.
go in the BG system.
So what I'm saying is, what do I do now, Dino? Where's the hope for me now? What do I do right now? I'd love BG to be governed. Love to make a complaint to somebody independent, but I can't. What do I do right now?
I think definitely take advice. And I think even if you've got, if you're unhappy with the advice you're given, get a second opinion. Look at elsewhere. You need to be able to bond with the person you're getting advice from. You need to see progress. If it's not going to progress, you just need to know and you can move forward. But I think it's really important to get that, knowledge. And I think that, to be frank, things changed in the life of a case. So even if we say yes now, things may be no. If we think yes now and actually things get better in your case, we tell you. So things do change continuously, but you've got to progress. You've got to move forward. Like a shark, if you stay still, you die. And I think that what the problem is with lots of these people, they're going to drop out. There's no hope for me here. I can't keep on doing this. I need to drop out. It doesn't help. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help other survivors. So I think keep on talking. Look to get advice.
Oh, guys.
Okay. We've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Dino, from the chat box.
Not just gym parent. Dino, thank you. Thank you for all you have done and continue to do for survivors of abuse. We are grateful you were able to pursue our case and wouldn't hesitate to recommend you and Leigh. Bless them. Our independent investigation finalized after 2.5 years. Dino settled our case without relying on the ICP within 17 months.
Okay. That's interesting to hear. So an ICP was settled within 2.5 years.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if it was settled. It come to its conclusion.
Someone put say no to abuse and then non-disclosure agreements and GDPR. I don't know what that is in relation to.
I don't know. And there's a couple of other questions from that thing, isn't there?
No, I think they're the ones.
They will be covered.
I think there was one about relationships within the gym setting.
Oh yes.
I know about the position of abuse, the position of trust. But we're hearing again that there's some coach relationships, but sometimes the coach is a gymnast, and it's just the lines are all blurred again, and we've seen that before. Sure.
Our culture's funny, Dino, because they say coach, but Nicky was coaching from 12, right? So you can be a coach at 13, 14, 15, all for your team, right? So I'm saying another hypothetical scenario. 21-year-old coach is sleeping with 17-year-old coach. Yeah? Legal, highly unethical. What can we do?
So the position of trust laws came into force in 2003 for predominantly school teachers. And one of the key aims, which I started when I was a lawyer, it didn't make any sense why it was just school teachers, why it didn't, a PE teacher, yes, but didn't cover a sports coach. So again, we worked on this with Tanya Gray-Thompson and Sarah Champion, the MP, and achieved it in 2022 to include sports coaches and religious leaders. And we are still campaigning because the fact it doesn't cover certain issues like ballet or wrestling, because wrestling's an art. So drama teachers and the like, it doesn't cover them because it's separate. It doesn't cover driving instructors because they're not teachers, not sports people, but you could still have a 30-year-old driving instructor and a 16, 17-year-old, but it doesn't cover them. So it doesn't make any sense. So there's still things to push. The reason why positions of trust laws are enforced, and what it means is that someone under 16 cannot consent to sexual activities, but position of trust laws, just for your viewers' knowledge, is that a coach, in this instance, a sports coach, cannot have sexual relations or activities with one of their athletes who's under 18, so 18, 17, 16. So it extends it. Your question is, what about if there's kind of inappropriate? So that often
Both
things.
coaches.
Yeah.
So let's make it really good. Let's go 22 and say 19. Both coaches in different clubs. They're still quite young people. They're in this culture. They're having relationships, quite flirtatious promiscuity.
So there's things which may be unwise, but his question is it illegal or can it be brought in a civil action? There are differences, and there's an argument, should the law create social norms or should social norms create the law? It's a bit of an academic point, but it's quite an important one. So with two adults who are consenting, technically it cannot be considered to be abuse. And lots of people meet their future partners actually through the workplace. That does happen quite a lot, actually.
We know.
We know, yeah. So it's not abuse. Saying that, there can be abuse in the workplace. When we look at people like Harvey Weinstein as an example, and others, if you want to get on in your career, if you want to have this flat, you must perform this sexual act.
Right.
That is abusing your position of power.
Right.
So if I'm head, so if I'm X, I'm head of a gymnast club called X Gymnastics Club. And you, Nicky, so predominantly, you're more likely to suffer abuse, not exclusively, but more likely as a female. You're a junior coach, so you're 19, 20, and I'm now, Carlton's age, so much older than 19, 20. And you want to join in, and I can decide, do you get into gymnastics? Do you go on to Lillishall and the BG kind of route? Do you get into the Olympic squad? If you want to, however, you got to have sex with me. That is abuse, and that's the thing with Harvey Weinstein. If you want to get into his movies, etc., the allegations were that he would do that. If you didn't play ball, your career was over. That is abuse. You cannot do that. You cannot manipulate a situation. So it doesn't matter if it's 19 and 22, it doesn't matter whatever it is. Its question is, first off, is there a position of play, but a position of power in play? Sorry, that's a consideration that's really important. If there's not, it does come down to consent then. If it's two consenting adults who are roughly the same seniority, so if you're both registrars in a hospital, both consultants, if you're both partners, if you're both solicitors, whatever else, is that just two people interacting? The answer seems to be, on a societal level and according to social norms, yes. As a result, the laws don't reflect that as a crime or an offence. However, if it's disparity, so I'm a partner in my law firm, if I said to one of my paralegals, something sexual, they would be obliged to comply, because if they didn't, would they get a pay rise? Would they get a promotion? Would they still be in the firm? So it's not a true and valid consent because they have no option. I hold their career. Do they want to qualify as solicitor? Do they want to get bonuses, pay rises, all the rest of it? It's totally wrong. It's abuse of someone's position of power and trust and authority, like Weinstein and others. So that would be abuse, to be totally frank. And socially, people would say that's not acceptable. So people would appreciate if we broke up, Nicky, you would go, you'd leave my firm. I would stay. I'm the partner, I'm the eldest citizen, etc., etc. That's abuse.
I have a question on this very topic. It's personal to me, but I'm going to ask it because I didn't get the chance last time. I'm a senior elite coach, and I have a minor sitting on my lap on a plane ride home. Where do I stand?
So with that, you'd be hoping that other coaches would be witness to it.
They were, said nothing.
So one of the things
one of the
things we've been trying to do is to bring in mandatory reporting. I was just tweeting about it earlier today, actually. So mandatory reporting means that there should be a legal duty on people to report known abuse or signs of abuse. And there's an independent inquiry into child sexual abuse called ICSA, published in October 2022. About £186 million spent on it. One of the 20 recommendations was that there should be a mandatory duty to do it. And if not, we are saying that there should be legal repercussions because in essence, you're aiding and abetting a crime. You're not stopping it.
Right.
And in France and most states in America and Australia, if you don't, report abuse which you know about, you face criminal repercussions because you haven't done, again, social norms should create laws. In this country, we don't have it. And if you have a look at what was put out yesterday and today from the government, it doesn't go far enough. It really is a chocolate teapot of mandatory reporting. It's totally pointless. So if we got what I wanted, mandatory reporting, anyone who didn't report it would be facing a criminal investigation for failing to report potential abuse. Now, obviously, kids can sit on people's knees. My nephews, my son sits on my knee. That's totally normal and fine.
But on an international plane trip, when you're representing your country in a sport, I have to question.
No. I hear you. Yeah.
With someone that would allow that to happen, and people just go, "Oh, that's normal."
It does come down to context sometimes. So let's say you've got a 6-year-old child who's very upset, homesick, crying. You may be trying to comfort them.
Understand that.
But I hear what you're saying, and your example isn't that, and I know that. So if we had mandatory reporting, others would be facing criminal repercussions, potentially for failing to act on signs of potential abuse. The question, is this normal? Does this look odd? Could this be a sign of abuse or grooming or manipulation? The answer should be that we probably need to investigate this. We don't have that in force. Even in 2024, it's still not a law. So we're relying on people's morals, their social norms, as I was saying. So if in doubt, most people will say nout, because do you want to affect your career? Do you want to affect your pensions? Do you want to affect your mortgage? If in doubt, you say nout. And if you say nout, there's no repercussions. If you do say something, that's when there are repercussions. Don't be stupid, Carlton. X is fine. X has been a coach for decades. Don't be stupid, Carlton. He's a really nice bloke. He's just little poor Uncle X, isn't he? He gives everyone a cuddle. Don't be stupid, Carlton. Be one of the lads. Don't be stupid, Carlton. You're making the club look bad. You are now tarnished, by the way, Carlton, and you're probably not going to get very far in that club or anywhere else. This is the reason why mandatory reporting is important. It protects whistleblowers. And you're not a hero just doing your job. So I don't believe in whistleblowers being heroes. I believe you should just be recognised as doing your job. So your question is relatively simple. The context is important. People should be raising those questions and going, actually, is this normal? Because if you're doing this in public, what are you doing in private? And that's the red light. And this is the reason why it's safeguarding, not child abuse or anything, but it's just raising that concern. And it may be totally plausible. Like I said, it could be a 6-year-old who's very upset and homesick, fair enough. But if it's,
They weren't 6.
No, and I imagine they weren't upset either. So I imagine that's why you asked the question.
I haven't had a couple of years.
Yeah.
Say this as well. To you and the community, thank you, Dino, for backing it up. But there is no such thing as a special relationship. It doesn't exist. Right? Just get that right. So all you lot on the plane that saw that have said nothing, there is no such thing as a special relationship. Get around that. Sorry to be emotionally.
No, it's fine. I think that
because they're in Rupert as well, Dino, and I'm like, you what?
I think if you take it out, you take it and put it into other contexts, and I think it's always really useful to do that because it gives you a better sight of it. If you had a priest and it's, you've got 20 kids from the congregation and, that age child was on their lap, you'd be going, "You're right. Is that okay?" You would ask questions, and the fact is, anyone can be an abuser, anyone can be an abuse survivor or victim. There is sadly no typical, and there's no common strands. You could be physically fit, you could be 7 feet tall or 4 feet tall, you can be 6 or you could be 16. There is nothing. You can be rich, you can be poor, you can be black, you can be white, you can be male, female. There is no commonality between any of the clients I've ever represented. Nothing at all. You could have 100 friends, you could have one friend, popular or not. You could be speaking 5 languages, you may, maybe speak one. It doesn't make a difference. It really isn't. So I think, again, there's a saying which I have, it takes a village to raise a child. But it also takes a village to abuse a child, and often abusers will groom and manipulate those around them. Because otherwise, if they're a weirdo in a park with an anorak, they're a weirdo. Don't go by them. But they're not weirdos. They're cool and they're nice and they're popular and they like the things we like and they're funny and they've been in place for so long. And everyone really likes X. He's a really nice bloke. Predominantly men are abusers, but not exclusively. 98, 90%, 98, 99% of abusers are men. So that's why I always say he, X. So it's really important that we just pick up on these red flags and we act on them. Again, it's easier because you have an independent body like the sports ombudsman. It's easier if you're under a legal duty to do so rather than a moral duty, mandatory reporting. We're not there yet. We will get there. We didn't have position of trust for, was it nearly 20 years? 2003 into 2022, we finally achieved that. That's how long it took to do so. We started campaigning from probably 2013, 14, I started campaigning, so nearly a decade to get that achieved. It's just a simple fix. It's totally obvious. The political will wasn't there for whatever reason. So it did then happen, obviously, post the football scandal, gymnastics scandal, swimming scandal, tennis scandal, and then it sped up, unsurprisingly, because there were so many voices saying the same thing. The things I'm saying here are borne out by fact and evidence. It's not borne out about my opinion. You need to show this needs to be a priority. Similar to the pandemic, similar to diabetes and other issues in our lives, show people how serious it is, then you have to act. You have to. So, yeah, hopefully that's all helpful for you and your viewers.
I can tell you now, I know that's been helpful. I mean, the car crash of the last one was very helpful, Dino, and you helped a lot of people. There's a lot of people that really did look into their civil case and look into the position they were in, and there's still people doing that now. I think having a clear feed tonight, everyone can hear exactly what you're saying. And again, I can't thank you enough from the bottom of our heart from everyone in the gymnastic community. Just bravo to you, Dino, for helping us because, again, we need help. For us to make gymnastics right the way it should be, we need help. It's obvious the self-governing doesn't work. And it's obvious that the culture is so broken or fragmented, let me say fragmented, that we've got no clear direction. I'm hoping with you educating the culture, with Gymnasts Voice and everybody else trying to get the answers that we need, we become one. All the organizations just become one and go, look, this is what we're trying to achieve. Let's make it happen. I think trying to protect your little pot over here and protecting your little pot over there and I'm bigger than you, I just think that's just so, it's ridiculous, really, if I'm honest. I think people should just get in a room, talk, share your stories, speak to you, and see which ones you can pursue on a case in which you can't.
And get these coaches out.
Yeah, for God's sake.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
I mean, stop injuring kids and get them out.
Yeah.
I thank you. I just, there's no other questions. Is there anything else that?
No, I don't think so.
Dino, I want to let you get back to your lovely, quiet weekend now, and thank you so much for that. I'm sure there'll be more questions arise, but once again, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Dino. No, just thank you.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers, guys. You take it easy. Have a good weekend.
Yep, until the next time. You take care, Dino.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Nice one. Bye. I just have to end this now, don't I? There you go. Well, I mean, once again, that's Dino Nocivelli from Leigh, who I think has made things very clear. I think anybody who has got a story or in trouble or you're suffering abuse has to be recorded, and you need to seek legal advice ASAP. You need to make your complaint to the ICP, but that is something that I believe runs alongside your civil case to make sure that BG has a record of it. I'm still understanding the fact that you're complaining to BG about BG, who will have a lawyer asking said BG coach questions. You're a witness. You got no lawyer. It could take anywhere, as we've heard, 2.5, 3.5. I know people have been in it for 3.5 years. No conclusion. It's just not fit for purpose. I don't think Dino could probably say that because obviously he's a lawyer, but I get the impression that I believe the ICP is an addition to your civil case. Civil case should be first, civil or criminal, whichever way, depending on the abuse. And the ICP's backup. I think anyone that's got the ICP as president, and they keep promoting ICP, I think you've gone down a path of a cul-de-sac. I think you've not realised it yet. If you do realise, you ain't getting us a no through road.
You're just like waiting in the vortex.
You just parked up at the end, right? And then maybe to save face or maybe to not, I don't care. I'll embarrass myself publicly, as you know, live on air. Don't give a monkeys. But if I was wrong, if we had people with Gymnast Voice that I couldn't help, I'd turn around and apologise to them. When I'd go, listen, I've messed up here. All right, I shouldn't have gone down this path. Let's now go down this path because the only reason we're in it is to help you. I don't need no brand. I don't want no brand. We didn't even want to be it. Right? I'd rather not be here because there'd be no abuse. Right? But it's like people keep asking. We, and however we've ended up here, we've ended up here. But I'm not building a brand. I'll tell you what I'm building, or what we're building. A community that can talk and share, because I know said Coach X has 2 other people about said Coach X and they don't speak to each other. That's ridiculous. Why? If I had information for 3 or 4 years that I could correlate, I believe in that time I would have known which coach has got duplicate people with accusations, and those people will be witnesses for each other. You need to speak. I can't reveal the names, but there's a couple of lionesses that we are in contact with, and they represented each other in their own cases, and it was successful. As Dino says, 1 against 1, hearsay. 2 against 1, man's in trouble. It's so clear to me. All right, we have had silence and rumors and disjointed, fragmented community for years. This is the first time we can move as one. And White cleared the paths. She's gone, look, it's systematically abuse. She should have said systematic sexual abuse as well, but I don't know what the precipice is to be systematic. Maybe we were 1 or 2 short, who knows, right? And I know that it looks like gymnastics is not good. And that's not what I mean. I'm saying that gymnastics itself as a sport, fantastic. The people that do it, the courage to do it, magnificent athletes, probably the best athletes I've ever met in my life. But our culture needs to change. And we need to stop having this narcissistic pissing contest, if I'm honest, because what is that about? What are we going to achieve if said coach wants to be better than this coach and I want to prove that I'm better than that coach, so I'm going to put this level of abuse on this young child to make myself look better than him? What the actual fudge? Seriously, what is that about? So now I've got a gymnast that's injured, and we would touch about these because a lot of them are getting injured, and I'm pushing them to get back because I want the medal. It makes me look good. What is that about? What planet are you on? And I don't get it that you've systematically become accustomed to, well, it's all about me. If I can get said gymnast to do said move, I might get an MBE. What are you coaching the sport for? What do you want for that child? Have you asked a child what they want? Does that child want to go through that abuse to please you, to get you recognized? Or would that coach would have enjoyed her gymnastic career anyway? I mean, I don't know. There's maybe 5% that are elite. or good enough to be elite. Let's have it right. Every gymnast tries their hardest, but you need to be really good to be at the top level. But not everybody wants to do that. But does that deny them their right to just enjoy the sport in a warm, loving environment because they're not an Olympic standard or not European standard? Should that gymnast be treated any less than someone who could bank you a medal? I disagree. I think the ones that don't bank you medals need more love, I'm honest, because the ones that are good to get a medal, they're going to get their reward eventually. But some never get to that. So I'm like, I don't get how this one system fits all. And again, I've got to say, I think this is a very easy sport to teach. I've just got to throw it out there. I'd like to see you coaches become an electrician. I'd love to see you gymnastic coaches that are HPC that think you're the dog's bollocks that are going to abuse kids, go and wire an house. I'd love to see that. I think you'd find out that this job is actually not that hard. And let's have it right. You've got thousands of willing participants coming through your door every week that want to do it. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. You've got kids that have been coming through this culture, being abused, that still want to do it. So it ain't even like you've got to motivate. I mean, you lot have got it easy. And I think because you've had it easy, it's why you've become too, I suppose, big-headed and put yourself on these precipices, and you just abused for years. And that's got to stop. But I'm getting back to the point that Dino said. And I know it's sensitive, but it was about me. The lies were spread about me. Rumors were spread that I photoshopped said evidence or said gymnast sitting on said coach's knee on an international plane ride home. I hope when he explained it to you, it hit. And I hope all those that were on the plane are now getting it. Now, I know it was a few years ago, but I don't think it's historic. But I'm asking you, and I'm going to say it to your faces. What did you do? Because I know you saw it. And I know someone had time to take a picture. And I know you've all talked about it. And I know you might have even believed the rumors that I photoshopped said gymnast on his lap. It's wrong. I'm not saying that he's done anything. I'm saying that's bad practice. And I'm saying that's what's got to stop. And I'm saying that's what we got to speak up about. And I'm also going to go back to, I want to just finish on Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor, Mr. Welfare Man. I'm naming you clear, and I'll tell you why I'm naming you. You was in integrity in 2019, rude boy, weren't you? Yeah, let's have it right. The other two people were Alan Edge and Richard Evans. They've now left for whatever reasons, retired, whatever reasons. But these were the people, these were the three people that made the decision in 2019 to let an arrested sex offender, whilst on bail, to coach from afar. Right? These are the people. Nobody else. Also, the head of team had to be involved in this decision. Right? So let's get this right. You lot made this decision in 2019 that he could coach from afar, be outside tournaments, start looking at Zoom calls with kids with their tops off and all the rest of it. You know the old 9 yards. I've said it a lot. Now you're the head of welfare, right? You're now the head of our welfare. So I want to know, what did you know about Stuart at the time when he got arrested? What part of how much did your input allow him to coach from afar? If you did, because you must have done, because he did at that time do it under your watch, how the hell are you in charge of welfare now? I've got questions for you, Ruth. A lot of questions. I want to know what you knew, how much you allowed him to do, how much you allowed the head of team gym to do, because they all knew. Man was free, streaming from tournaments. Yeah? So this is quite serious. Much worse than the gymnast on the knee on the plane. This one is serious. You put my wife in danger.
And then also emailed me to then threaten me with some, I don't know, breach of some paragraph somewhere when you were the conduct and disciplinary manager.
Right.
Do you remember that email? That you told me that I was too loud online when I found out about Stuart and went to the sentencing to see all the disgusting things that he had done.
Oh.
Under the watch of you guys.
And we're still waiting for the email. I'm still waiting for the email to come back as well.
So conduct disciplinary manager. Yeah. So now there's no integrity, and now you're the head of welfare.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I tell you what you did do was present the British WAG.
Oh yeah.
You managed to do that while he's waiting in the ICPs for you to sort out.
Well, look, Mr. Aaron Pryor, I'm going to ask you a question, yeah? I've sent you 4 emails. You ain't getting back to me. You said that you're busy. I'm busy. Think how busy I am. Right? 2 kids under 10, 3 jobs, and we're ambassadors for this, and we've got a lot more that we do. You are only part-time at BG, I gather. So you've got quite a bit more time than I've got, because you like doing other things. Yeah, your LinkedIn profile shows that. So this is what I'm going to say to you, rude boy. you need to answer a few questions. What did you know about Stuart Woods in 2019? When he got arrested for sex offenders, what decision did you make? Who allowed him to coach from afar? Who allowed the head of Team Gym to let him coach from afar? And these people are still there. I'm not listening to you. I ain't going to work under you. I want answers. And how the hell you could still be in charge of Team Gym, you know what I'm saying, when you make them decisions? Nigga, please. Nah, just, this has got to stop. You lot in the community need to wake up because you're following the wrong man there, right? All of one. Unless you all want to become like the playing crew, like that. I'm not seeing nothing's happening. There's a lot happening. There's a lot we need to discuss. But let's start addressing this now. So I'm going to call out your name, Mr. Aaron Pryor. Get in touch with me, right? I've emailed you. I've done everything right. Went through welfare, made all the right complaints, heard nothing. You just keep fobbing me off with your big mouth.
Right? And you've also contacted a lot of other people, a lot of ex-gymnasts that have spoken out.
Yeah.
You were named in Niall Wilson's book, autobiography. Did you tell them that they were bringing the sport into disrepute? Because I'll say back to you, like I did in that email back in 21 when you threatened me, you did that on yourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think any man that would allow, if he's arrested for sex offenders to coach from afar, has got some questionable crazy. And for you to say that to my wife when you're making them decisions, and now you're in charge of welfare now, please don't, mate. Please, honestly. And I'd love you to come for me. Come for me with defamation.
Come on the podcast.
Yeah, come on the podcast. Come and defend. Yeah, come and why don't you bring you and your other pal on the podcast to defend why you let a man arrested for sex offenders against 3 minors
and got promoted for it.
Yeah. To, sorry, let's get this right, manage from afar. Why did you make that decision? Who was that benefiting? Because she met him in the car park, so you put her in danger. Our kids could have been with her, so they would have been in danger. You are so lucky that they were. You are so lucky that my kids weren't with her at that time, Mr. Pryor. Trust me on that. And the head of Team Gym. You're very, very lucky. But I will expose you, and I'm going to expose you next. Head of Team Gym, next podcast is going to be about you, because I need to get the people to understand how truly toxic you really are, and what decisions you make that affect a lot of people. And
it's still happening. I'm still getting messages now from 3 years since we made No More Silence. And I thought that it might have changed in a little bit, but no. And I keep saying, well, I'm not surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. Because everybody just went back and didn't say nothing. They played the game. They kept his Stuart Woods image. Yeah, let's not talk about that. And all these poor kids now, you know what I mean? They're now in their 20s thinking that's all right.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, you're so right, Nicky. And the thing is, it's starting to happen. We've got a lot of support behind the scenes. I say we've got support. A lot of people are speaking to us, being braver, right? We're trying to break the dam of silence. Yeah, we're trying to open up the floodgates for people to just speak, which you can't. All right. Yes, me and my wife are passionate. Yes, me and my wife might come across as being a bit maverick. But I tell you what we will do, we'll listen and we'll give you a truthful solution. I believe you've got the fastest conduit to Leigh Day that you're ever going to have. And I can't believe it's free, but do you know what I'm saying? Can't believe you ain't got to spend any money to find out where you stand. To all those that are in the cul-de-sac, I'd give them a call, at least get a second opinion. For all those that are in an ICP without a civil case, find yourself a lawyer. And for all those that know exactly what I'm talking about, and you might not even know us, I ain't judging you. Right? Even to the person that I was speaking to before, I'm not judging anyone. I'm just trying to help whoever get the questions or the answers to the questions that they ask. Is that right? We've got nothing else. So speak to us, come together, let's share the knowledge, because I know there's people sitting in that cul-de-sac. We've got other people that have evidence against the same people you're up against and you don't know, which could be a witness in your case.
And I have a map of gyms across the whole of the UK. When I've got 1, 2 people, 3, 4 people, 1 over here, 2 over here, you know, and they know each other, but.
And we're gladly help. I have notes. We're gladly help. If you ring us, we'll give you the info. I'm not withholding nothing. It's not about me. It's not about Nick. We will point you in the direction that you need. You just need to ring us. This is the coach. Have you got anyone with info on that coach? We can either say yay or no. All right. I know we're prevented from contacting you for whatever reason, which I still find that ridiculous. But you know, hey ho, there's levels to this, and our level is honesty and just here to help. I hope you see that. I hope you see there's no other agenda. And whatever we can do to help you, we will. Is there anybody else or any other questions or anything that needs answering?
We need to get the phone numbers.
Oh, the phone number, Jesus Christ, 07836
Don't do this again.
587 70. Oh, God, hang on. I can't believe that.
We were doing so well.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. But, you know, I thought it was too easy tonight because I ain't got the number up on the screen, have I? It's 07386 701 557, isn't it? Do you know what? I'm going to have to pick up the other thing. Well, this is just so embarrassing, isn't it? I'll tell you what. Call my phone. But I can remember it in this PCC one, which is 0800 587 6696. I think. Oh, I've now got to go on the YouTube to see the vid to give you the number. I do apologise. One day we'll get this right. One day you're going to go, do you know what?
07386 701 557. Is that what he said?
I think I said it once.
In edit, we'll have it.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, in the edit, I'll have it down the bottom. But that's no good to you now if you want to ring in now, is it? So we'll stay on for another 5-10 minutes. 07386 701 557. The NSPCC dedicated helpline is 0800 587 6696. I think. I'll double check that by looking on my own notes. Joke, innit? You think you know it, and off the top of your head, but it's not easy. Yeah, there we go. 0800 587 6696.
20 past 10.
Is it 20 past 10? My God, that time has flown. So look, if there's any questions, we'll stay on for a quick another 5 minutes. If there's any important questions, stick it in the chat. We'll try and answer it. I'm not sure if we covered everything we should have covered, but I hope you got a lot out of Dino. I do love that man. I just think he just breaks it down so you know. And the fact that you can get your services on a no-win, no-fee. I'll be ringing Leigh Day tomorrow. I've got
It's not price. It's not going to cost you anything.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, it's not like, well, I mean,
But you're not doing anything wrong. You're just getting advice.
Oh, it's a bit late now. I did want to discuss Jess Daykin's TikToks. It was about the culture. I want to pay it justice because there's some stuff I wanted to show you. So I'll do that on the next one because it's just as relevant. But this elite gymnast, I mean, mate, she's got balls to fill a skip. All right. Take the hat off to you, my love. And all she wanted to do was speak the truth. And they want to prevent her from being a level 1 coach, and they want to take her out
Keep
the team.
doing you, girl.
Yeah, you crack on, love. Make it happen because you seem to be as happy as you can be, rather than miserable doing what they want you to do. Just as Nicky said, keep doing what you're doing. But I want to play you some stuff. There's a big thing that we had on that, and also Blind Eye. For God's sake. So. Our name of the Blind Eye is a series of interviews we're going to be doing. We've got some very, very predominant people in the gymnastic world. One from not just British gymnastics, from outside the organisations that want to tell you their story. I don't know if I can mention his name or not. No, I can't yet, can I? There's someone really big lined up that they had other commitments, so we did have a pre-arranged meeting. If you're watching, we will be up to come and see you. There's another woman who, mate, I know you're not watching because I know you're suffering. Right now, there is a woman who I will be interviewing. And right now, she can't be watching this podcast because the abuse that their child suffered is so prevalent, they're dealing with it right now. Right now, as we sit here speaking, this poor woman is dealing with what this culture done to her kid tonight. Turn around. I mean, listen to this. Sent not an apology, but said, look, we can't make it tonight because we're doing blah, blah. I mean, to even think about it, it's ridiculous. Family comes first. Deal with that. that's where our passion comes from. Every day we get a call from a person suffering from the abuse that this culture's put on them. Be it the person who's abused, be it the parent of the abusee, be it someone, the sister, the brother, the cousin. It's major. It has to stop, right? Gymnastics isn't bad. The coaches who are toxic are making it bad. There are many less toxic coaches than there are toxic coaches, but there is a lot of toxic coaches. You know, I'm saying 60-40. I've got to be honest, 60-40.
And nobody owns gymnastics.
Toxic fever.
I'm going to go back to it. Nobody owns gymnastics. Gymnastics is in our heart.
Yeah.
Right? They can't take that away from us.
You know?
We can leave the gym, but I can still do a cartwheel.
Right.
For you guys, obviously a lot more, but
they do like to gloss it over. They do like to say, and most people, even Dino said it. And you know, it's like, you know, there's a lot of good people in gymnastics. Yeah, there is. There is a lot of good coaches in gymnastics. But I'm saying at the top elite level, 60-40 split toxic.
yeah, but I disagree. I think in the rec classes and the other disciplines, it's as bad. The rec classes, because you're still trying to strive to that next goal. So the flick might be the thing, or the tuck back might be the thing, or you can't twist, so you're never going to be able to get up to that other squad. You know, rhythmic and sports acro, tumbling. I mean, come on, guys.
There's a lot. And I suppose, I think the real shame is they get noticed more. The toxic coaches get noticed more because through their diligent abuse, they win a medal. You know, and that's the thing. I truly believe, I bet you 90% of those toxic coaches didn't win a medal themselves. And they're trying to fulfill that of athletic ability that they didn't have, or even if they did have, through the other child. I believe if you've achieved what you want in life, you'll just want the best for the child you're coaching.
It doesn't matter how close you get to that child or their family, they're not your family. They're not your kids.
No.
You know, those parents, that's their family.
Exactly.
So you can think you're getting close to them, but you're a coach. So do your job and leave them alone.
That's right. That's right. And parents, I know you said it earlier about the guilt. I get it. I really do get it. But you cannot feel more guilt than coaches like us that were inside the doors next to them. We feel just as sick. You can't blame yourself for it. We didn't know. You had no knowledge. You're not even allowed in the gym. You're not even allowed to watch the session. Some places you can, some you can't. But, you know, on the whole, it's a pretty close shop, isn't it, really? You don't really know what's going on in an elite squad session. And what used to make me laugh, if you produced a gymnast good enough to get into the elite, you'd have to take the gymnast up there. We couldn't coach them. We'd have to hand them over to them.
And then you're shoved up in a room.
Then we're shoved up
Then
in
you
a room.
can't even see.
And we're the coaches, do you know what I mean? Because don't forget, only us lot can coach at that level because we're so superior. Well, you're not really. Do you know what I mean? And I know that's what you think, and that's what makes me laugh. Take you out of the gym, what can you do? Seriously, take you out of the gym, what can you do? Yeah? Right? I mean, that's the fact. Right? Many people can come into a gym and teach gymnastics. I swear down. You just need a bit of savvy, understand a bit of maths, and a couple of biomechanics, and you can get to a reasonable level. You can study hard to get to the top, right? But it's not like you can't get to the top. It's not like if you've got half a brain of common sense and you study the mechanics of progressions and you put the right practice in place, you will get to the top.
Only if they'll let you and you'll play the game and you get selected. Though.
Right.
Otherwise, like for Jess Daykin, they wouldn't even give her a level 1.
Right.
That's your first coaching. I mean, the kid is amazing. She's done these well.
Medals, silver medals on B.
And normally, I found out you get a buy. So, like, for your first coaching award, it's pretty obvious you know how to teach a forward roll. But they tried to take that away from her. There's a Steve Scott interview about her. She's amazing.
Yeah, don't. Bless you, Jess. That's so funny. And the thing is, how can an Olympic athlete, a European athlete that's won medals, I mean, she got silver on the beam, but the British Championships, European Championships, can't remember where it was. But it's back for 2019. Don't quote me on it. I might have got the thing wrong, but she's won medals, yeah? I'm saying I think she's done a double what? Was it a double spin on the beam? And I mean, just walk on the beam. Anyone who's never done gymnastics, do me a favour, just go and walk along the beam. Just walk along it. And tell me if your minerals don't start doing that, especially if you're a bloke. You slip, I swear to God, just walk along a beam. Forget about trying to do a cartwheel on a beam or a double spin on a beam, or just walk on the beam. what is it? Is it a meter up?
I think it's 120 or 130.
I challenge anyone, if you really want to understand how courageous every gymnast is, walk along a beam once when it's up with no mats. Get on it, walk down it. If you want to try and tuck front off, good luck to you. But I'm just saying, just try that. That's enough. You ain't got to do no more. And I'm sure you'll be, now I get it. So how can a girl that's that competent then be, no, you're not allowed to teach a forward roll or a cartwheel? Girls bank medals. You see what I'm saying? It's a madness. And here's the funny thing. I keep saying it. And I don't mean to belittle the HPC coaches, you know, because I know you're very good and I know you're very talented. I know you studied hard to get there. But it is not rocket science. And gymnastics has been around for so long. The moves have been around for so long. Everybody knows how to prep that move. Everybody knows how to do that. You might have to learn how to support that move, but the move's out there. Unless you're inventing something new. Unless you're Simone Biles' coach, you're the only one in the world who can go, well, actually, I'm in unknown territory here because a girl's never done this. That's fine. Right? I will tip my hat to you. But everybody else, stop kidding yourselves. Yeah? The mechanics are easy to understand. You just got to implement that to the gymnast. Her gift is understanding how to convey that wholly information to whatever the kid is and relate to that personality and give it to them how they want to receive it. That's her gift. She's too humble to accept that, but she can coach it. Me, I'm slightly different. She's far superior to me. But can I coach? Yeah. Could I support it? Yes. Do I think I'm something special? Hell no. And the stupid thing is, I'm nearly the same level as her, and she's been doing it for years, and I don't know. I don't even know a tenth of what she knows. But as a level 2, I could go and open up a club, apparently. What? What do I know as a level 2 coach to then go and open up a club to be in charge of minors? And just, the whole system's madness. So, I'm going to cut it there and just say, look, let's keep being open. Let's keep sharing information. If you're in any other group, Gymnasts Voice will always accept you. Just come and speak to us.
Almost talk to anybody. Do you know what I mean? Even if you're the bad coaches, come and drop us a line. Tell us your side. I'll listen.
Too right.
Can't guarantee what I'm going to say back, but I'll listen.
For sure. I mean, all right, we are biased. We are on the abusee side. But you remember the massage thing? I had to swallow, didn't I? I was online. I was saying about the massages, how inappropriate I think it was. A very highly qualified masseuse come around and said, Colton, no, you actually can. There's this theory and that theory. I said, sorry. And he re-educated. So there may be someone out there doing something that I don't consider good that may be able to educate me and make me feel that that's okay. But sitting on your knee, I ain't having that one. Right. So night, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll edit up and load it up later and take care. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful sunny weekend. Bye all.